Pyrotechnics is proudly sponsored by Fireworks Rock and Metal magazine. 164 pages packed full of interviews, reviews and features all about your favourite genres of music. Our latest edition is available from our website, fireworks-magazine.com.
Welcome to another thrilling instalment of the finest rock and metal music podcast gracing your eardrums. Proudly sponsored by Fireworks Rock and Metal magazine, because let's be fair, who else would have us? I'm joined by our esteemed editor and walking encyclopedia of all things metal, Dave Cockett. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Pete. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another podcast.
Also in the house is our art editor and resident rock wizard, James Gaydon. Give us a holler, James.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again.
And last but no means least, there's me, Pete Arnett, specialist in consuming snacks and making a total prat of myself. So we need to kick things off with a heartfelt apology for the wait since our last episode. To be fair, James told us weeks ago to record this, but truth be told, issue 112 took hold of us like a Led Zeppelin encore, and progress basically ground to a halt. Rest assured, justice has been served. James endured a marathon of Ronnie Romero, including the new one that's just been released. Dave's ears were battered by Royal Republic, and as for me, I survived the unspeakable torment of Oasis on repeat. We're all battered, bruised, and probably tone deaf, but we're back. On the subject of 112, good news, it's out now, and inside you'll find over 40 cracking interviews with legends like Bryan Adams, Hailstone, Glenn Hughes, Styx, Bush, and Those Down Crows, and that's just for starters. Feast your eyes on 16 top-notch features, and I've got to include this one, including Dave's magnum opus, The Enthusiast's Guide to Y&T, an epic tale guaranteed to make you want to dig out your air guitar. Plus, we've got over 200 reviews, each more honest and unbiased than a Premier League referee, ready to help you unearth your latest, greatest album. Turning serious for a second, since episode 26, we lost the legend that was Ozzy Osbourne. Like many of you, this came as a shock, not just to the three of us, but also to the magazine. We all knew his health was in decline, that was obvious. But having seen him at the Back to Beginning concert, we thought he might be around a little longer. We all have stories of how we came to hear Ozzy's music, be it with Black Sabbath or his solo stuff, and he does leave a great legacy behind. All of us would like to say rest in peace, Ozzy. Thank you for the music, the memories, and the laughs. And we send our sympathies and condolences to his family, bandmates, and friends. Right, now it's time to set the quiz question for the chaps. Here we go, gentlemen. So pens and paper at the ready, or just pin back your earlugs, whatever you want to do. James, get off Google. Which album has spent the most time in the UK charts? So which album of these five has spent the most time in the UK charts? Answers are from the officialcharts.com. So again, if it's wrong, you can blame them and not me. So your first one, Slippery When Wet, Bon Jovi. Hysteria, Def Leppard. So Far So Good, Bryan Adams. The Works, Queen. Bat Out of Hell 2, Meatloaf. So that's Slippery When Wet, Hysteria, So Far So Good, The Works, Bat Out of Hell 2. We got them, chaps?
Yep.
You couldn't put Dark Side of the Moon in there, could you?
Or Queen's Greatest Hit.
No. No. See, already, listeners and viewers, they're trying to cheat already. We're not even about a minute and a half into the show and they're wanting changes already. I don't know. Anyway, the clock is now ticking for our experts to come up with the answer. And of course, we will reveal if they have knowledge abundant at the end of the show. So, views on the news. On our website, fireworks-magazine.com, we like to bring you a stack of news from the world of rock and metal music. Here are a few that have caught my eye over the last few weeks. Legendary prog outfit Spock's Beard have announced a new album. New recording artist Austin Starr has released her new video, Remain Unseen. The Switch have released their new album, No Way Out, via Frontiers. German legends Mad Max are releasing a whole load of new stuff. And Yes have announced the UK Fragile Tour 2026. So what do we make to these pieces of news? Dave, give us your worldly opinion.
Yes, seem to be following everybody else. There seems to be an increasing trend for bands to come out and feature a set built around a classic album. I'll give you an example. I'm going to see Saxon do Wheels of Steel next couple of months. So, yeah, why should Yes not have a piece of the action? It's a good album. Mm-hmm. Mad Max, Don't know what the sales base is, to be honest with you. They were never that big. I'm sure that there will be some people out there that will be interested, but what the sort of numbers will add up, whether it'll be a worthwhile exercise in terms of profit it turns, I really don't know. I suspect it'll be borderline. The Switch was an interesting one because I'm generally not a big fan of those types of albums, as you'll find out later. But the first couple of songs I heard from it actually caught my ear enough to want to go and play, and it's not bad. It surprised me at how good it was. I mean, James will backstory more over it than I have because I think he's posted about it on social media. But the concept of it is something a little different, and it's well executed. Let's put it like that. The new artist, I must admit, that I haven't listened to, so I can't really comment. And Spock's beard, well, it's Spock's beard. It's just that they always put together something that's classy, thought-provoking. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it misses. The back catalogue is a little bit hit and miss for me, but anything new by Spock's beard got to be worth a listen. So yeah, that's got to be a positive too.
Cool, indeed. Right, James, give us your take.
Yeah, to Dave's point there about the Switch, that was one of the few things that sort of popped up lately that made me go, oh, what's this? The reason being, if you're not aware, the Switch is basically designed to be a soundtrack for an imaginary film, but as if it came out in the mid-80s, which is right up my street because I love my 80s films and 80s soundtracks were amazing. So for somebody to do that, there's loads of albums out there where, we're like channeling the 80s, which is fine, but to specifically aim to be like a soundtrack, that sort of Stan Bush, Kenny Loggins kind of sort of era, I was like, this could be quite interesting. And I like the fact that the way it's presented with cover artwork is done like the old 80s film posters. And I listened to the album, like Dave said, there are some good songs on it. It's not quite what I was hoping for, but it's a big step in the right direction. I like the idea that they've come up with a little backstory and the songs are telling sort of like the story of the film. It's better than just being a generic 80s Cars and Girls kind of album. There's a bit more thought behind it, and the idea that it would be used in a film gives them scope to use some bit more atmospheric synths and things like that. It was a good effort. It's not perfect, but I'd like to see more along those lines because it felt a little bit more authentic than some of the other 80s kind of vibey stuff that comes out. Some of it's like, if we stick a chrome logo on it and have somebody pose with an old guitar, you need more than that, and they offered a lot more than that. Like I said, they fully embraced the 80s vibe. There's not been a lot of things lately that's made me go, oh, what's this? But that did. So yeah, that's worth a listen, and there are some really good songs on it, and I was impressed with the singer. I wasn't previously aware of that kid, but yeah, his vocals on it were really good, so it's worth a listen, definitely. The other thing I would say is, like when we mentioned Ozzy earlier, we did say about him on the podcast about what his concert would be like, and I did say I thought it'd be a disaster, and I was absolutely wrong. I have to acknowledge what a great job he did considering the state he was in. He went out on a high, so I'd just like to acknowledge that my prediction it'd be a disaster was completely wrong, and I'm very happy to be wrong.
Fair enough. Yeah, totally agree. So this Switch thing, I was talking to Dave about this before, and you're right, it's the 80s soundtrack, and to be fair, it's quite brave to take on Stan Bush, who I think has pretty much got that genre corner stamped down and sealed. But the only problem I had with the Switches album, like you said, some of the songs are really good, and some of them I found quite bland. Now, I don't know if that's... I mean, I also have to admit that I said to Dave that I listened to it on the day I was in a bad mood, so I don't know if that's, not particularly helped my understanding of what the guys were trying to do. But I got to admit, I do agree with you, James. The bloke's voice is absolutely fantastic. I mean, he's popped up from nowhere, this singer, and he is very, very good. I don't know what it was. I just found some of the songs were very melodic. Some of them you remember straight away, and other ones just disappear from the mind pretty much after the next song would come on.
That sort of mirrored my opinion. It was like, it does run out of steam a bit. So, like I said, it's good, but it's not quite there. But it's a good start.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That potentially is where a note of concern comes in from me. Like you say, it's a good start. As a standalone one-off, okay. It was, let's say, a project which I'm not the biggest fan of, but it was done well. However, knowing how some of these companies milk these things, when we get to the Switch 5, we've got a completely different band, written by completely different people. The author will have been flogged to death numerous times, I think. I can't see it continuing to get that same response.
But to be fair, Dave, they will bring in Ronnie Romero and everything will be okay on vocals. Yeah. You do have to wonder, actually, is it a project? Is it going to last? I mean, that's pretty much, I was about to say as well, that if it continues, they're going to have to get stronger in the songwriting.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah. We'll see how it goes. But like James says, and Dave also said as well, it's worth listening to. It's certainly not one to skip. But, will it stay in your memory afterwards? That's the big question.
It's just a shame that we've got half of it. We've got the soundtrack, but no film. Back in the 80s, you go back to the Kenny Loggins and whatever, you got the soundtrack, you got the film.
Yeah.
We've got half of it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's at risk of upsetting YouTube or whatever, is it a bit of a prick tease? It's a bit,
I think if you had the budget, that would be maybe what you go for. You maybe make the album. Because I remember years and years ago, back in the 70s, Curtis Mayfield made the Superfly album, and then they made a film to go with it because the soundtrack was so strong. So I think it would be that kind of idea. It'd be like, we've made this soundtrack, and then you could get some sort of independent filmmaker to maybe do a YouTube movie to go with it. But obviously that's a budget and a time constraint. But yeah, I think if the album had sold tons back in the day, that's what would have happened. It's probably not going to happen in this case. But
yeah, you don't see Top Gun 3 emerging out of it, or something like that.
The 70s, James. You remember the 70s? You were born in 1996. What are you on about?
Yes, but youth is no excuse to ignorance.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And Spock's beard, it's Spock's beard. What else can you say? Not quite on the level of Dream Theater or Threshold, I would argue, but then again, certainly not bad at all. It'd be interesting to see what they come out with and see if they manage to recapture sound stroke glories past. But yeah, could be an interesting one, that. Right, 60 seconds sound off. We landed that glorious segment again, also known as the moment that these fine gents get to unleash their inner annoyances for the first time this episode. Each one gets a minute, in theory, at least. We all know that Dave seems to operate in a totally different time zone to me and James. So where 60 seconds is stretched to in his world, God only knows. It could be a full concept album before we finish. Basically, they get to vent about whatever musical madness has recently sent their blood pressure soaring. Here we go, 60 seconds. Right, and off you go, James.
So that's aimed at Dan and Justin Hawkins, who've been quite vocal lately, slagging off Yungblud, who came to my attention because he appeared at the Aussie thing. I wasn't really familiar with him before that. And now he's recorded a song with Aerosmith, and he's getting a bit of a push out of it. And I think good for him. And the guys from The Darkness have basically buried him. Dan Hawkins said his performance was cynical, nauseating, and more importantly, shit. And Justin said it was posturing and not authentic rock and roll. And I'm like, who are The Darkness to say that? I mean, The Darkness had one really successful album and polarized the rock world because some people thought they were parodying rock. So who are they to be calling a newcomer not authentic rock and roll? It's not like they're Deep Purple or Black Sabbath. They're The Darkness at the end of the day. So I think having an opinion is fine, but slagging this kid off for not being authentic when you're The Darkness just smacks of nonsense to me.
Oh, very close there, James. Yeah, I didn't know they said all of that. Yeah, that's not on, is it?
100%, James. Yeah,
that's not on.
Yeah, start flagging people up if you're Richie Blackmore or Jimmy Page or somebody like that. But when you're two nobodies from nowhere,
exactly. I mean, if I'm naming my top 50 rock guitarists, I don't think Dan Hawkins is getting in there. If I'm naming my top 50 frontmen, Justin Hawkins is not getting in there. If I'm naming my top 100 rock songs ever, there's not going to be a Darkness song in there. They're all right for what they do, but I think they should just... Because Justin Hawkins does this on his YouTube. He spends basically all his time on his YouTube channel picking holes in things of people who've done far better than him.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of his, and I must admit, he is very... he's an angry man sometimes, isn't he, to put it politely. So, yeah, I didn't know he said that about Yungblud, though. That's definitely not on. So yeah, that's a very justified rant, I think.
It is, absolutely, and it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult from our perspective, and we're very small fish in a very big pond.
Yeah.
But when you're actually in the industry, to start slagging off somebody else, it's going to polarize opinion.
Yeah.
You're going to get people that say, "Yeah, that's absolutely right," but you're going to probably get more people that said, like you've just said, "What right have you got to say that?" And the best thing is.
Yeah, like you said, if it's somebody, if Jimmy Page had said, "Oh well, I don't think he should be doing that," you look at Jimmy Page, you think, "Oh, fair enough." But Justin Hawkins pouncing about in his leotard, singing in falsetto, and who wanted to do Eurovision, and you're talking about authentic rock and roll, really?
Yes, I suppose in some respects, any publicity is good publicity. So I suppose it all bounces back on him and the darkness. But yeah, like you said, he's not exactly the king of the castle, is he, to be able to start spouting off that crap sometimes?
I mean, personally, I've got no actual horse in the race. I don't know enough about Yungblud to have formed an opinion myself. I've not had enough of his material. But if somebody like Ozzy liked him and Aerosmith want to record with him, he must be all right.
Yeah, no, you're completely right there, James. Agree 100%. Now, brace yourself for Dave. The stopwatch is primed for what little good it'll probably do. And our esteemed editor is going to tackle the end of life as we know it. Sounds interesting. Time may be an illusion, however, as Dave embarks on his 60-second rant, but let's see. Right, Dave, your time starts now.
I heard something the other day that confirms what I've thought for a long time, actually, and that's about the inexorable rise of AI. I won't just justify or dignify the project by telling you what the name was, but there was something on YouTube that's essentially a channel that promotes you to believe it's actually a real band from the 80s. And there was a track on there that I heard. And to be fair, the track sounded very, very good. It ticked all the right boxes from that era, but it was completely AI generated. There were no people involved whatsoever. And I can just imagine this thing running itself forever, as long as somebody leaves the plug in. And I think that's scary. Music should be the purview of real bands, real musicians. And AI needs to do one.
Oh.
Because it's just going to take bread off people's tables. Call me a Luddite if you like, but AI-generated music without the soul, without the passion of real people being involved.
I tell you one thing there. What was with the false ending then? I thought we were back in a Def Leppard song.
Oh, well, putting in a pregnant pause.
I thought 48 seconds he's cracked it, and then we got the comeback. Yes, I mean I know what you're referring to, and yeah, as a song, it's kind of not bad, but yeah, like you say, if you leave the lights on and enough electricity in the meter, it's going to run and run and run.
Yeah, I had the song as well, and I made the same statement on social media that I'll make now is I don't understand what it's for. Because if somebody said to me, "Hey, there's a new film out. There's nobody in it. Nobody's written it. It's all been generated by AI. Do you want to go see it?" I'd be like, no. Same if it was a TV show. So it'd be the same for an album. I have no interest in an album that has nobody on it. But somewhere down the line, somebody's involved. Somebody has put in those prompts. So exactly. There's going to be somebody way behind the scenes who's come up with this idea and is sat all the way in the background making money off this. And I don't understand why, if people know it's generated by AI, why you would get it. What's it for? It's not like, oh, it's a really good song. Okay, it might be. Then what? Can you go see the band live? No. Can you meet them? No. Can you read an interview with them? No. Can you get an autograph? No. You can't do anything because they don't exist. So what's it for?
I guess it's that old thing of saying because we can.
Yeah, but just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Well,
I think the bigger issue is will enough people care one way or the other. I care. I don't want to. I don't knowingly want to listen to music that's been written and created solely by AI, where there's no people involved. Yeah. But you look at your sort of more mainstream pop market, because it's not just rock that this affects; it's everything. Aren't people out there going to care enough? Because if enough people don't, and this really starts to take over, which I fear it will, is that it's not going to be musicians that make money out of it. It's going to be faceless corporations or programmers. But to set something up on there that just runs itself and just creates something, I mean, there are scarier implications beyond it creating music. But as you said, do we really, just because we can, should we? I think it needs to be nipped in the bud. I can see that bands are going to use this as a tool to write music and then just record it themselves, or even do a Milli Vanilli. But whilst I can kind of get that, you've still got the physical, you've got the real people coming in. You can actually go see a band. Are we going to get AI tribute bands? Is that the next thing? These songs were all written by computer for your toaster, but come down your pub on a Friday night, we'll charge you $5 on the door, we'll play them for you. I mean, is that what we've sunk to?
I think it'll probably, the way we've gone, like you say, with like people who listen to pop music, don't tend to be that bothered about music. It's just something they stick on Spotify when they're in the car, or they have it on in the kitchen when they're cooking the tea, and they're not really paying that much attention to it. And then you got like the other side of the coin, which is people like us who buy albums and still give a shit. And I think if it went that way, you'd have more people just listening to dross and a group of real fans, real audiophiles, real music fans listening to actual music, in the same way where you get like a disposable sort of teen film which doesn't have much of a plot and doesn't have much in the way of anything except some nice looking people in it, and then you get really good films that are well structured, well directed, well shot, and different audiences. I think that's the way it'll go, and you'll get some people who just sail through life listening to crap, and some people who like music.
But if it becomes more difficult for people to write music because they can't get a look in, because AI proliferates, then that audience is not going to be catered to, and it's going to dwindle. And maybe it dies out with us.
It might end up, you might find that you might get like corporate record labels say, we'll put more money into AI, and then we don't have to pay real people. And it might start up other record labels who do the opposite. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. But yeah, for me, it's like as soon as you said, there's nobody on it, it's all AI, my hackles went up. I was like, why would I even listen to this? But I wanted to listen to it so I could form my opinion. I thought the song was all right. I think it was out special, but it did make me think, like, why would I ever listen to that again? What purpose would that serve? I don't get it.
I think one of the frightening things as well is there's a list out in there that says that 85 to 95% of the world's employment will be changed by AI. And one of them that was under the category of not needed anymore was musicians, which you tend to think, well, A, that's scary, and B, haven't we got to stop this beast in its tracks sometimes?
Well, it isn't art, be it physical, as in painting, sculptures, etc., or music. Isn't that the sort of pinnacle of human civilization creation? If you get a computer to do that, what's the point? You get AI to help you around the home or whatever, or a robot that's driven by AI. What do you want it to do? Do you want it to cook your dinner and clean the house, or do you want it to actually sit and watch TV, or while you do all the boring stuff? People have got their heads on backwards. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. I mean, this goes back to
Plus, by the way, I did think Dross was a great name for a Dross tribute band, James, by the way.
Well, again, like today's point there about the human element. So if I was sat in a studio and I was like, I need a guitar solo here, if I ask AI to play one for me, or I bring in Paul Gilbert, I know which one will be the better solo.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. I mean, we know AI's taking over all assets of music anyway, don't we? Because hasn't Beethoven just released his 6th new album in the last 8 years? I'll let you work that one out. Right, we're going to get away from the topic of AI because, like you can tell, it is an emotive subject, and it's fair to say that, especially us three, we're not great fans. In fact, we don't like the bloody thing at all, to be fair with you. But it is creeping into daily life. It is creeping into all facets that we know. And who's to say that somewhere down the line there isn't going to be an album popping up of AI music that just totally fools the rest of us? So we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully, we're all clever enough to work out what is AI and what is not. But we're going to have to wait and see. So we're going to move on to our main topic. And this is where hopefully things are going to get a bit more lively than they already have done. Because in the past few months, we've managed to light a fire a bit on our social media channels by daring to ask if certain albums are a tad overrated. And by God, have you lot responded. You certainly let us know in your comments what you think of our claims. But predictably, this has also snowballed into a debate about the bands themselves, if these guys are also overrated. So I've cherry-picked a handful of contenders, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss them over to our resident musical sages for their expert opinions. Of course, what's overrated to one person is a cherished classic to another, so don't take our verdicts as law. They're just our take on the wild, wonderful, and occasionally bonkers remarks that the online world seems intent on hurling out. So the first one up is Guns N' Roses. Some people call Guns N' Roses overrated because they believe the band's legacy relies too heavily on one album, Appetite for Destruction. While it's undeniably a landmark release, critics argue that their later output never matched the intensity or consistency. For example, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 were commercially huge, but some fans felt the albums were bloated with plenty of filler compared to the raw energy of their debut ones. Others say that the band's reputation is built as much on image and controversy, fights, late show, Axl Rose's attitude, as on the music itself. So, what do we think to this? Guns N' Roses, overrated or not? James, start us off.
I would say yes, absolutely. I always thought that. The Appetite for Destruction album is an absolute stone cold classic. It's one of the greatest rock albums ever made. No dispute there. But that is the only Guns N' Roses album I own. For the simple reason that, as you alluded to there, Use Your Illusion, had it been one album, could probably have been a very worthy follow-up to Appetite for Destruction. But instead it became a marketing gimmick of being two separate albums, a double album, however you want to describe it. And what you've got is basically a killer album split over two records with a bunch of not-so-good songs thrown in. There's plenty on there that even the most ardent Guns N' Roses fan would be hard-pressed to say, oh yeah, that's a worthwhile addition to the canon, isn't it? It's not. There's some belters on there, but yeah, to string it out to two albums, they didn't have enough material, quite simply, of the relevant standard. The Spaghetti Incident, an album nobody wanted, I don't think. Let's do a bunch of punk covers. No, thanks. And then obviously, Slash's made way, and then Chinese Democracy took about 100 years to finish, and when it came out, nobody was that bothered. Is it really a Guns N' Roses album, or is it an Axl solo album? And some people thought it was really good, and other people thought it was bloated beyond belief, and there was far too much going on. And their live shows have degraded in quality, as is Axl's voice. When you look at it, I think Slash's output as an artist has far exceeded what Guns N' Roses has done. So yeah, I think Guns N' Roses' legacy is built on the foundation of Appetite for Destruction. Without that album, they've not really contributed that much. That one album is so good, they can get away with it. They can still fill arenas now off the back of that album. But the rest of the things that they've offered, nah, there's not a lot there that I, like I say, it's the only album of theirs I own. I don't feel like I'm missing out by not having the others.
Yeah, no, got to agree with that. And yeah, like you, James, Appetite for Destruction is the only one that's in my collection as well. So we're both heading towards the overrated part of the spectrum. Dave, have you got a counter argument, or do you agree?
As an anorak, I've got them all. But I would agree that if you're going to pick a Guns N' Roses album to play, you'd pick Appetite for Destruction. I think that the biggest problem is that became so huge so quickly that they then bought into the hype, and that Guns N' Roses are the best thing since sliced bread, and they've continued to believe that. Yeah. And all the things that you mentioned about arguments in the band, about Phil's attitude, about showing up for shows 2 or 3 hours after they're supposed to have gone on. In what world is that kind of behaviour acceptable? Takes nothing into account of people who have arranged public transport, let's say. You go to a gig that finished 2 hours later, you've missed your train home. So you've got to walk the streets, or you've got to try and find a hotel at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And it all to me stems from that attitude that the album became so big so quickly, and everybody was all fawning all over them. And that has prevailed long past the point where they've got anything new to say. I would even disagree in terms of the Use Your Illusion albums. I think you'd struggle to make a decent 12-song album out of the two of them put together. Chinese Democracy is a joke. Even as an Axl Rose solo album, it's a joke. Spaghetti Incident, like you say, it's that they hadn't earned the right at that point, I don't think, to do something like that. They hadn't got enough albums under the belt. They hadn't built up enough of his legacy. One album doesn't make a legacy. And it's just, they're probably the prime example of a band that have actually gone on for years and years and years and are still highly thought of in the general public's eye because of that one album. But they're way past the sell-by date. And I would agree, James, yes, Slash's output's been far better. And he's far better working with the likes of Miles Kennedy.
Yeah, well, when you hear Miles Kennedy sing the Guns N' Roses songs, the better.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so I think we can both, well, all three of us are certainly saying overrated on that one. Right, okay, we're going to move on now. And James, I need you to do me a favour, mate. I need you to pin Dave down when I say this next one, because I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to reach through the screen and try and throttle the living daylights out of me. Right, next up, Metallica. Main argument is that they are overrated because they believe the band's massive commercial success overshadows their actual music. Critics argue that after the Black Album, Metallica abandoned their thrash roots for a more mainstream sound, leaving die-hard fans feeling betrayed. Albums like Load and Anger are often cited as examples of inconsistency, with many claiming they didn't live up to the band's early work, such as Master of Puppets or Ride the Lightning. Others say Metallica's reputation relies heavily on just a few iconic albums, while weaker releases are overlooked. Even live, James Hetfield's vocals and Lars Ulrich's drumming gets criticised. Dave, what do you have to say about that?
I think Metallica are far more deserving than Guns N' Roses. I wouldn't say that they're overrated at all. They are. They were the thrash metal linchpins.
Yeah.
And yes, I accept that they couldn't do 10 albums like Kill 'Em All because it would all sound the same. I get that. Kill 'Em All was a triumph of enthusiasm over talent at the time, I think. But it just captured a mood.
Yeah.
I think throughout the 80s, I would argue that the Black Album's not really, it was a change in direction, which is why when you get things like Nothing Else Matters, why they became big songs, you wouldn't have got that mainstream acceptance of things like Blackened or Master of Puppets or The Four Horsemen, because there wasn't enough there in terms of people listening to something that they could latch onto. There wasn't enough of a little bit of a hook that they could sing on their way to work. Didn't mean that it wasn't art and didn't have its merits. Yes, they have had the problems. They've had their substance problems. James Hetfield, you could argue, was never the best of singers, but he's got a distinctive voice. Lars was never the best of drummers. I've seen him numerous times, and you could argue on even on a good day, he misses nearly as many as he hits. But I think that Metallica have enough of a genuine legacy, and even from later albums, okay, I struggle with St. Anger, but Load, Reload, things like Death Magnetic, and certainly 72 Seasons, there's enough of a hint, or more than a hint, of the Metallica of old to say that the creative spark is still there. Certainly more so than Guns N' Roses. Have they become a little bit of a corporate machine? And does that go against the whole principle of what they were in the beginning when they were angry young men playing clubs? Well, yes, of course it does. That happens to everybody. If you're successful, success will change you, whether you want it to or not. I mean, look at the Sex Pistols. Now, okay, I get you could argue they were manufactured by Malcolm McLaren, but the whole point was that they railed against the system that ultimately they became part of. So for people to say Metallica are overrated, don't accept that.
Fair enough. So definitely got a not overrated there from Dave. James, what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, it's terrible. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, I'm not a big Metallica fan, if I'm quite honest, but that's because that's not a a sphere of music I tend to move in. I don't like the early days when it was like sort of more, thrash or speed metal or whatever you want to, that sort of 80s movement. That was never my thing. But they sort of, like Dave said, they cracked the mainstream. And they did that because they wrote some really good songs. Enter Sandman, pretty much everybody knows that, whether you like metal or not. It's like a classic. And I don't think they abandoned their roots that much by recording a song like Enter Sandman. I think that was a way to, like Dave said, start off as an enthusiastic band that have then learned their craft and then are able to produce something like that. And that Black Album obviously is what put them into most people's consciousness. And they're still going, they're still around. Their last album was, by all accounts, pretty damn good. It's not like they're flogging a dead horse. It's not like they're a spent force, like you can argue Guns N' Roses is. I think they're an important band. Yes, I know there's a lot of people, like say, who weren't keen on certain periods, but I think that's part and parcel of any band's legacy when they've lasted decades. There's going to be, unless you're AC/DC, they're probably the exception to the rule. There's going to be periods where they try something different musically just to stay fresh, just to stay relevant. AC/DC and Motorhead probably the only two that have got away with not doing that. Everybody else, all your big bands, whether it's Queen, whether it's Fleetwood Mac, whoever you care to name that's been around decades and sold out stadiums, they've had periods where they've changed styles or they've tried something new or they've added a different sound. So I don't think there's any reason why Metallica can't do the same. And I think what they do is, they still fly the flag for high quality metal. They're still one of the main sort of names you would think of when you come to thinking that metal bands. They still can do it live. So yeah, I don't think they're overrated at all.
Okay.
To pick up on what you said there, James, you're right. I mean, you look at Iron Maiden with Somewhere in Time. That was different. You look at Priest with Turbo. And Priest have actually done it a couple of times. Nostradamus was a big change. You could argue it's not Priest, but still a good album, in my opinion. So, yeah, but bands, not every band's going to be Led Zeppelin. Not going to be allowed that creativity to do what they like when they like.
No. Yeah, so Guns N' Roses overrated, Metallica underrated, is what the guys have said. I'm going to admit, I'm not a great Metallica fan either, so I tend to sort of sidestep a lot of their material. So, likewise, I'm going to sidestep this argument because I don't really have too much of an informed opinion on this one. Right, James, again, please pin Dave down for this next one. I have a feeling that we might get shouted at yet again. Rush. Rush is overrated, or the people seem to think that Rush is overrated, and it seems to stem from their music feeling overly technical and self-indulgent, prioritising musicianship over emotion. Critics say Geddy Lee's high-pitched vocals are polarising, with many finding them grating. Others feel Neil Peart's lyrics, although intelligent, are often too heavy-handed or pretentious, dealing in abstract philosophy rather than relatable themes. Detractors also point out that Rush's long, complex songs can alienate casual listeners who prefer straightforward rock. Some critics argue their influence is overstated compared to bands with wider mainstream appeal. For example, while fans hail albums like 2112 or Moving Pictures as masterpieces, others dismiss them as code and inaccessible, more admire for technical skill rather than enjoyment for emotional connection. Dave, unravel that one for us.
I think that Rush are probably a band that's a bit like Marmite. You either like them or you don't. Yes, they're technical. They're all hugely accomplished musicians. So why would they not? I mean, you could level the same sort of accusation at bands like Genesis, Pink Floyd, all those prog bands from the 70s. Doesn't mean that they don't have merit. I think that people who form that opinion have listened to a snippet of one song and come to that conclusion that it's not for me, therefore it must be crap, which is rubbish. Now, Rush are an example of a band who continued up until the death of Neil Peart to reinvent themselves periodically. They had a period where they were more keyboard dominated. They were a little bit more commercially focused than the sort of more progressive metal type sound. That let's be under no illusions. They pioneered the sound that the likes of Queensryche and then Dream Theater picked up on in the 80s. That's where progressive metal started with Rush in the 70s. So for anybody to just come along and dismiss them without actually listening, I defy. If you've got any musical nous whatsoever, sit and listen through the Rush catalogue. Come back and tell me in a fortnight that they're still rubbish. They are cited as influences on a lot of bands. They have a huge canon of work that all has its merits. There are some better albums than others. I think the original mix of Vapor Trails was a bit of a low point, if I'm honest. But my personal favourite's A Farewell to Kings. From the sort of the second period, but good Power Windows, Hold Your Fire, even stuff like Presto's got its moments, and live they were brilliant. So I can't say that anybody that says Rush are overrated is talking out the wrong hole.
Fair enough. James, which hole are you talking out of?
The wrong hole. I think the crap. No, I'm kidding. No. What you described in your little sort of like thing that you've basically mirrored my experience. So I can't get into Rush for a lot of the reasons you named. Geddy Lee's voice being one of them. It just didn't work for me. My introduction to Rush is I was round at my uncle's house when I was first starting to get into music, and he had a lot of rock music, and he played me If You Want Blood by AC/DC, and it was the first time I'd ever heard AC/DC. Oh my God, this is awesome. And then he put Rush on, and I was like, what the hell is this? And I've since learned how technically brilliant the members of Rush are and were. And I can't fault them in terms of, their knowledge, their technical skill, all that. But the songs just don't resonate with me. I'm not a prog person anyway, so anything sort of proggy doesn't sort of vibe with me at all. The combination of like these proggy sort of influences and Geddy Lee's voice is just enough to keep me away. So for me, I'm like, I can't possibly say they're overrated because the level of musicianship, the success they've had, the amount of people who love them. Yeah, I can't argue with that, but I'm not one of them.
Fair enough.
Like you said at the beginning, Pete, I think it's all these sorts of things are opinions. I'm not a Beatles fan or a Stones fan. I wouldn't say that either were overrated because that would be a stupid statement to make because of the undoubted influence that you can see that they've had on generations that have followed. They just don't do it for me. And I get where James is coming from. Rush, as I said, they're a bit like Marmite. You either like it or you don't. And I accept that Geddy Lee's vocal style is, let's say, unique. But to say that they're overrated is really just an off-the-cuff comment that people are saying that's not an informed comment. It's just something I don't like and therefore they're overrated. That's my opinion.
No, I mean, that's what I said. Our opinions are just that. It just made me laugh how in the comments, obviously, what we've done on social media, and it just shows you what social media can do. Everyone's jumped on, oh, these are crap, that's crap, this is worse, that's terrible, this is good, this is bad. You don't get that kind of informed opinion. But it just made me laugh how many one-off songs we put up, one-off albums, beg your pardon. I think the Rush album we chose was 2112, wasn't it, Dave, if memory serves?
Yeah, 2112, yeah.
That one really sparked a riot nearly. So, it's always interesting to see what people say. But then when they start saying, but the band that did it are crap as well, and you suddenly think, well, okay, hang on a minute. That is a very, generalised statement. I mean, yes, you might not like them. And the sentence that you said, Rush are like Marmite, is exactly how I feel as well. Geddy Lee's vocals, like you say, they are unique and they can be very overbearing sometimes, I think. But like James also pointed out, the technicality of it all is absolutely amazing. There's certainly no doubt that they can play as a group. There's certainly no doubt that they can write lyrics. But somehow in my thought is they just don't mesh 100%. And I think that's the problem. There's always a bit of sometimes not an unease about listening to them, but there's a bit of I've got to go and do the carpet. I need to go and wash the car kind of thing, that kind of overrides it. And that's what it is for me. So, but yeah, I don't think you can say they're overrated at all. They're certainly they're good at what they do, and like you said, they're the precursor to a lot of the groups we do listen to nowadays. So there you go. Right, the next one is funny enough. Is one that the guys have already mentioned, although they probably don't realise, and that's Pink Floyd. They've often been called overrated because their music can feel overly long, self-indulgent, and pretentious. Critics often point to albums like The Wall or Animals, saying the concepts are bloated, weighed down by filler. Others feel that while tracks such as Comfortably Numb or Wish You Were Here are classics, but they're overplayed now to the point of fatigue. Detractors also argue that much of the band's success comes from spectacle, massive light shows, elaborate stage sets, etc., marketing rather than pure songwriting. Compare that to other progressive rock bands like King Crimson, Yes. Some say Pink Floyd have played it safe musically. For those reasons, despite their influence, Pink Floyd are sometimes branded as overrated. But do we agree? James, what do you think?
Difficult one for me, that. I can't... Again, being prog, I've tried to like Pink Floyd, but I don't. It's that simple. I've listened to them and I'm like, it's just on. I'm not connecting with it in any way. I've had people tell me, if you're high and you listen to Dark Side of the Moon, it's, well, that's fine, but I don't do that. So I've tried different albums. I've tried watching them live on telly, and I'm just like, well, yeah, I mean, again, I can't fault Dave Gilmour, unbelievable guitar player. They've obviously had huge success. Dark Side of the Moon is one of the biggest selling albums there's ever been. So on that principle, I can't possibly say they're overrated, but they don't do anything for me. That being said, who am I? It's like they've sold millions and millions and millions and millions of records. So I think anybody saying they're overrated, to Dave's point, it's just like, if I don't like it, it's crap. It's nonsense. There's way more people who like it than don't. So I would have to say, yeah, but it's not my genre. I don't like prog. It just doesn't resonate with me. They're probably one of the best at it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to like it. So for me, I don't like them, but can't possibly say they're overrated, not with the success they've had.
Good point. Dave, throwing this one over to you as well. Do you think that the recent thing with Roger Waters has caused issues?
Roger Waters and Dave Gilmour's caused issues for many, many years. The fact that they can't work together or be offered enough money to work together. I think to go back to what you said earlier about people citing the fact that there was a spectacle that they put on big shows was detracting from. And whilst I could see that from an outsider's perspective to a certain extent, to get to the stage where they could put on those big shows, they had to put bums on seats in enough quantity, sell enough albums to actually be able to do that, because no promoter's going to come along to any normal band and say, oh yeah, we'll book you Wembley Stadium, we'll get 250,000 watts of PA and 1 million watts of light and lasers and smoke and flash bombs and fire cannons and whatever. But we're expecting you to sell 10, 15 tickets. So that becomes a non-argument. They have to have got there by merit musically to be able to put that on. But I think that Pink Floyd are one of those, for want of a better description, are almost like a legacy band from the 70s. And back then, when bands came along, they were allowed much more scope than they are now. They were allowed to develop and explore. And progressive music by itself is it's music that stretches boundaries. You can take things off in different directions. You can introduce bits of jazz. You can introduce elements of all sorts of bits into it that doesn't fit in your standard 3-minute pop song. And bands back then, I quoted Zeppelin earlier. Zepp's the masters at it. No two Zepp albums sounded the same. And that's because they were allowed initially to do that and to develop, and built up enough of a fan base to then turn around to the record company and say, well, we can do this, but we'll still sell it. I think to a lesser extent, Pink Floyd were the same. They were allowed to do that. You listen to something like you mentioned, James, Wish You Were Here. Simple song, simple, plaintive sort of song, yet it's got that hook. And I think if you listen to, like you said, Comfortably Numb, you listen to Dark Side of the Moon, there are some wonderful little melodies and hooks and whatever that flow throughout it. Dark Side of the Moon has to be listened to as a piece of music rather than a track. And I think that, that, as James said, to say Pink Floyd are overrated by who? People who don't know Pink Floyd. I'm not the world's biggest Pink Floyd fan. I struggle with some of it. It doesn't get me the same way that Dream Theater or Rush or bands like that. But they have the merits, and they've got enough merits, more than enough merits, to say that we're one of the greatest bands of all time.
I am so glad that you picked up on that Massive Light Show comment, because when I was writing this and obviously doing the research and all that lot, and I wrote this down, I thought that's one for Dave to jump straight on and pick apart. So I'm really glad that you did.
Yeah, you can only put shows on of that magnitude if you've put enough bums on seats. Simple economics.
It's almost like, I mean, again, we've heard so many albums and done so many things, but it's almost like it's the armchair keyboard warriors again, isn't it? That sit behind, like you say, they've heard 20 seconds of a song, or possibly a song out of 12, and they've gone, "Oh, I don't like this. I'm going to therefore slate it completely." But I mean, some of the things. I mean, there's another one later on in the show as well that got my blood boiling. But some of the crap that people write and then try and pass it off as gospel law is absolutely amazing. But yes, I mean, again, yeah, Pink Floyd, not my cup of tea in respects of just sometimes I find it overly. I do find it a bit pretentious. I must admit, I'm not going to say overly pretentious, but I do find some of their stuff. Again, you drift off, and you end up thinking about something completely different. I mean, Comfortably Numb, Wish You Were Here. Yeah, you're right. I think they are classics. They are the songs that do grab the imagination, the songs that do grab the attention. But some of the other stuff, not quite so sure about. But again, that's my opinion versus Dave versus James. That's what supposedly makes the world go around, opinions, but I'm not entirely convinced. Right, the last one. And again, the guys have mentioned it. It's almost like they're reading my notes, and I haven't shared them, I promise. But one group that seems to be heavily slated as overrated are the Rolling Stones. Because despite their legendary status, critics argue their music is inconsistent. While they produce classics like Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street, detractors say many later albums lack creativity, recycling the blues rock formula. Others feel their reputation leans heavily on image, the world's greatest rock and roll band, rather than musical innovation, especially compared to peers like the Beatles or Led Zeppelin, who we've mentioned before. Jagger's stage antics and media presence also shaped their fame, leading some to believe that charisma outweighed artistry. Finally, with decades of touring and branding, some accuse the band of prioritizing commercial success over musical progression. James, give us your take on that. Are they overrated, or is that person or those people, because I must admit this is more than one person, speaking bollocks?
Yeah, they're speaking bollocks. Right. So I'm kind of a Rolling Stones fan. Yeah. I like the Rolling Stones songs when other people do them. they write some really good songs, but it's like I've got quite a few Stones songs in my collection, but it's Tom Jones doing them, or it's Lulu doing them, or all different artists that have covered it, and you're like, that's a really good. Even Little Richard covered Brown Sugar. His version was brilliant. Yeah. But when you listen to the Stones, I've got Tina Turner doing them. There's all these artists that have taken these songs, and that's when you realise how good these songs are. When Mick Jagger's singing them, not so much. But again, he's a frontman rather than a singer, and a very good songwriter, because obviously the bulk of the Stones catalogue is Jagger and Richards. So I can't knock him for that. And the point that they say there is, oh well, they've not remained innovative, or they're not like Beatles or Led Zeppelin. Well, the difference is Beatles, Led Zeppelin existed in a very short period of time compared to the Rolling Stones, compared to Deep Purple, compared to Black Sabbath. Mm-hmm. Led Zeppelin had this little period where, as Dave said, they made a bunch of albums where they all sounded different, and then John Bonham died, and they were like, well, that's it then. They called it a day. Same thing with the Beatles. They went through a bunch of phases in a relatively short period of time. John Lennon was assassinated. Well, we're done now, aren't we? But all these other bands, Black Sabbath, have gone on for decades with various lineup changes. Deep Purple have gone on for decades with various lineup changes. Kiss have gone on for decades, various lineup changes. All these other bands have done that. And the Rolling Stones fall into that category, but without that many lineup changes. they've still been going. They've still got Mick Jagger. They've still got Keith Richards, which is a miracle in itself. They're still performing big shows. Their last album, Hackney Diamonds, was pretty well received for a bunch of senior citizens, really, because that's what they are now. People are going, oh, that's good, isn't it? So they can't be that bad. And that's the thing. I think it's a very unfair comparison when people use the Beatles and Led Zeppelin as like some sort of like threshold, when they're being judged on they did this much work compared to bands who did that much work. If the Beatles and Led Zeppelin were still going now, they'd have had lineup changes. They'd have made albums that people thought were a bit ropey. They'd have experimented in the 80s with drum machines or brought in a synth or something like that. Look at what Robert Plant does now compared to what he was doing in Led Zeppelin. It couldn't be further away. He has expanded as an artist, and that's what tends to happen. So the idea that the Stones should still be doing what they were doing in the 70s is nonsense. I think the fact that they're still here should be celebrated. The fact that they've had such an incredible career is unlikely to ever be duplicated again. So no, can't possibly say they're overrated. They're one of the Jagger and Richards team would have to be rated as one of the greatest songwriting teams in history. So no, not overrated at all.
There we go. I think James has, had his say and has put his case over very well. Dave, are we going to be the prosecutors to his defence, or are we going to agree with him?
To pick up on what James said about him preferring Stones songs done by somebody else, I'm a little bit the same with Bob Dylan. Never a Bob Dylan fan, but All Along the Watchtower, for example, is my favourite Hendrix track. I could say the same about Bruce Springsteen. I was never a Springsteen fan, but you listen to Manfred Mann do Blinded by the Light, and it's just awesome. So it is. The Stones are. I think that they've earned their place. They've become one of those bands that's untouchable. I'm not a Stones fan. I listened to the last album and the Hackney Diamonds. It was okay for a Stones album. Would I listen to it again? Probably not, because I'm not a Stones fan. But you were right in what you said about the Beatles and Zeppelin. They had a finite window of time. The Stones have been around, Keith Richards has been around since Stone Age, I think. But they've been around for 60 years. And they're still doing things on their terms when they want. And you can't argue with reach like that. You can either like or dislike the songs. You can like or dislike the stage presence. You can say that, the shows aren't like they were in the 60s. Well, no, I can't run marathons anymore either. But that doesn't mean that that it makes them rubbish and that you can sweep away that history. Again, it's one of those things that those sorts of comments are made by people who have listened to a little bit, so they've jumped on something that somebody else has said, and it's cool, it's trendy not to like the Stones. I'll give you a pop example. When ABBA split in 82, they went through a period where everybody said, ABBA were rubbish, it was all this. And then, all of a sudden, over the last 20 years, and certainly since Mamma Mia, the musical and then the films, they've become popular again, and people have gone back and said, well, yeah, actually, they wrote some great pop music. And I think if you're minded to that sort of sleazy rock and roll type sound, that Stones is your blueprint. That's where you start. So if you've got a band that's created a blueprint that everybody else follows, how can you say that they're overrated? Yeah, not at all.
Again, fair points made.
But I still prefer America's version. Aerosmith were much more my cup of tea.
There we go. Yeah. It all boils down to the simple fact, isn't it? It's everyone's opinion. People listening to this, and listeners and viewers, please let us know in the comments below. Do you agree with what the guys have said? There's 5 bands there. In essence, none of them, possibly bar GunsNRoses, are overrated, and even then, Appetite for Destruction, it's a classic. But people are going to always say on social media, "Oh, this is rubbish. That's rubbish. Don't like this. Don't like that." Form an opinion straight away, and then see who else jumps on the bandwagon. We've always said, and we've said it in the magazine umpteen times, please listen to it yourself in its entirety, get your own informed opinion, and then you can say what you want in that respect. Don't just take a 20-second snippet of a song and then make a judgment. But in essence, if we didn't have social media and these wonderful keyboard warriors putting this podcast would be extremely short because we'd have absolutely nothing to discuss. So in that respect, please keep on doing it. Please keep slating everything, because it gives me and the guys something to rant against. But again, people do think that bands are overrated. People do think that albums are overrated. Other people don't. That's the beauty of music. It does divide. It does give people a chance to have opinions. So, keep doing it. But as to the ones that we've suggested, I think the gentlemen have had their say, and pretty much none of them, like I say, bar GunsNRoses maybe, are overrated. So with all that said and done, let's move on to the next segment, which is Unpopular Opinion. As listeners to this podcast will know, part of my role is to scour the music forums that exist to find the daft, the dozy, and the pure rage-inspiring opinions that people try to pass off as gospel, pretty much on the last segment. For this episode, one comment caught my eye, raised my ear, and sent my pulse rate into triple figures. The source of my irritation was on Classic Rock Forum, where the original poster put, and I'll try and control my rage while I read this out, Hotel California by the Eagles is way too long, with the guitar duel finale feeling like a jam session more than a song. Now, apart from wanting to give the OP a one-finger salute, it seemed I wasn't the only person who wasn't too impressed, and I'm toning that down, by this thread, as the replies were lengthy. But what do the guys think to this? Unpopular opinion or musical fact? Dave, the Eagles Hotel California. Surely it's a classic.
Absolutely, it's iconic. And anybody spouting that is got no musical taste or inkling whatsoever. They're tucking out the wrong hole.
Indeed.
Absolute bollocks.
Yeah, like I said, I think this one spanned to about 17 or 18 pages of replies, basically saying exactly the same. But James, come on, give us a hat trick. Do you agree, Hotel California, classic or not?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's one of the best known songs from that genre. It's one of the Eagles' signature tunes. And you've got to remember the period as well. It's like Dave said, in the 70s, people were allowed to expand musically. They were allowed to do things like that. You look at some of the albums from the 70s and there's you turn the side over and there's 2 songs on it because they're 20 minutes each. That's not a problem because that's what they did. You wouldn't get away with it in the 80s when everything was shaped more for MTV and radio and things like that, and everything had to be within 3 minutes. But in the 70s, it was like the Wild West. Anything goes. People were allowed to express themselves. And with the musicianship in the Eagles, it's the same like the solo with Lynyrd Skynyrd on Freebird. It's that's the point. We jam out. The 70s was the jam era. That's how most stuff worked. Yeah. So yeah, that's the point. If the Eagles were to record a song in the 90s, you wouldn't get that. So that you've got to take the period into account.
I don't know what got me more with the fact they said the song was overlong, or the fact that the guitar duel, which I think is possibly the finest guitar duel in that respect I've ever heard, was just like a jam session more than a song. I mean, it's awesome. It's just purely awesome. And I read this and I was livid because I love the Eagles. The Hotel California is probably top 2 of my favorite songs of all times. And when anyone disses that, I must admit the hackles come up and the automatic, I'm going to say completely the opposite brigade in me comes out. But this one, it's Hotel California, for Christ's sake, people. Leave the thing alone. It's a legend. It's a classic. Leave it alone right now. I demand it.
We like saying Bohemian Rhapsody be good if you cut that opera rubbish out of it.
A lot of it must be clickbait.
Probably. Attention seeking.
Yeah, more than likely. But it's just, I say, the great thing about this, I was saying to James off air, was that obviously when I go through these things, I look for the things that got the greatest amount of replies, because you can usually guess that some plumber says something dopey, and needless to say, they had in this respect. But I'm sorry, I'm not having it. Hotel California is an absolute classic, and leave it alone. Otherwise, I'll come round your house and bring James and he'll sing to you. Okay? Got it. Good.
Why would you reward them?
Oh, very good, Mr. Gaydon. Very good.
He'll be doing William Shatner covers.
Yeah. Hey, the Karaoke Kid has done some Eagles. Don't you worry about that. I've got that covered.
Singing Eagles. Didn't say that at all. Ronnie Romero's greatest hit.
Well, that'll be a short set.
Yeah, enough to scare them. That's all we need. Okay, quick. Let's move on. Right, brace yourself, people, because it's time for Flush Down the Rock and Metal Music Crapper, a segment where the lads get to rant yet again. Think of it like our own take on Room 101, only instead of banishing things to oblivion, we gleefully send them swirling down the rock and metal music crapper. Just as long as the rant holds water, that is. So first up is James, whose topic he hopes to convince me to flush. He's going to announce to us pretty soon and then give his pitch. Go on then, James. What have you got for us today?
I want to flush down the institution that is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I went to see the new Spinal Tap film, which I loved. I love Spinal Tap, and I was very happy with the film. And there's a joke in it where they are allowed in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame basically told them to fuck off, right? It's amusing, it's funny, but it sort of sparked something in my subconscious that Spinal Tap are legitimately more deserving than some of the people who are actually in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because it's a misnomer. It's not the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's basically now just a music Hall of Fame. It's got nothing to do with rock and roll. There's been countless comments over the last sort of few years when the latest batch of inductees are announced, like, oh, where's so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? And you look at who they're inducting and who they're ignoring, and it's got nothing to do with rock and roll. It's got nothing to do with music. It's just a corporate piss-up, basically, by people who don't actually understand anything about the genre it's supposed to be representing. And the reason I say that is I did a quick scan of bands that haven't been inducted yet. That would include Jethro Tull, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, Pantera, Boston, Blue Oyster Cult, Judas Priest, Steppenwolf, Grand Funk Railroad, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Thin Lizzy. None of them are in it. But bearing in mind this is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they have inducted Madonna, Whitney Houston, Dolly Parton, Run DMC, Eminem, Jay-Z, James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Donna Summer, ABBA, and Kool and the Gang.
That well-known heavy metal group.
Yeah, what on earth is going on there? Now, some of those artists are brilliant. I mean, James Brown, he's the godfather of soul, but the clue's in the name. He's the godfather of soul. Why is he in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? He'd be the first to tell you, if he was still alive and kicking, that he never did any rock and roll. That wasn't his bag, quite literally. Papa's bag was soul. Eminem, rock and roll? I don't think so. Jay-Z, certainly not. So why are they in there? Dolly Parton's the queen of country. Why is she in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? She even said, oh, I've just made a rock album because I was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so I felt I had to. So she's by her own admission saying, well, I never did any rock prior to this, so why is she in there? My business partner went to Nashville, and she loves country music, and one of my all-time favourite artists is Jerry Reed, and she went to the Country Music Hall of Fame, and she took photos of the Jerry Reed section and sent me it because she knew I'd appreciate it, which I did. And Jerry Reed, totally deserving of his place in there, but he was stood in his section next to people like Mel Haggard and, you know, Hank Williams. He wasn't stood there next to fucking Def Leppard and ABBA, because they're not in the Country Music Hall of Fame, because they're not country music artists. It's not a difficult concept. So why they're filling it with all this nonsense, I've no idea. And as Dave says, like, the fact that Iron Maiden, who are arguably the biggest metal band of all time, haven't been put in is just nonsensical. And when they do finally induct deserving bands, Deep Purple, for example, they don't induct everybody. They cherry pick who out of Deep Purple should be inducted. So you look at Deep Purple, Steve Morse is not a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee under the guise of Deep Purple, even though he was in the band longer than Richie Blackmore. Don Airey isn't, but Nick Simper and Rod Evans are. Makes no sense. If you're going to induct a band, you have to induct the whole thing. You can't say, oh yeah, we'll induct Bad Company, but only the original four members and not Brian Howe, who had a platinum album with him. He doesn't count. You can't say, oh, we'll induct Kiss, but not Bruce Kulick and not Eric Singer, who were instrumental in keeping the band going long after Ace Frehley and Peter Criss departed. But that's what they do. It's just this ridiculous, poorly thought out corporate nonsense that has got nothing to do with rock and roll. And it has no prestige and no honour associated whatsoever as a result, so I think we should get rid of it. If you're calling it the Music Hall of Fame, fine, but Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it most certainly isn't.
I think we may have touched a nerve there, folks, to be fair with you. And to pick up on a couple of points, I mean, don't you remember the death metal album from Dolly Parton, where she tells everybody exactly what she did with Jolene, and where she told the boss to stick the 9-to-5 job? But yeah, I mean, to be fair, James, as soon as you mentioned Hall of Fame, you'd won. It was swirling down quicker than God knows what. So yeah, I have to agree. I mean, it's a joke, isn't it? I mean, how many bands have they said they're going to induct have turned around and said, fuck off, basically. We don't want to be in it because it's not a rock and roll Hall of Fame now. It's just a piss take of the MC degree. So yeah, that one's swirling completely down the rock and metal crapper. Have you got anything to add to that one, Dave?
I really don't know. When it first started, it seemed to be a way of recognising people who'd been around long enough, and a lot of them were dead. But it's got away with itself. It's just become it's become ridiculous. It's a parody. It's almost like Eurovision. It's become, who can we put in it this year? Oh, we can't put them. They're not cool enough. And who are they? Who are voting for this? Who's coming up with the nominees? Who's saying, yeah, they can be inducted, they can't? It's certainly people who don't know what rock and roll's all about. As James alluded to, some of them in there. I've got no problem with the likes of Dolly Parton or ABBA, as I mentioned earlier. ABBA are a fine pop band, but rock and roll, no, not really. So yeah, it's a load of cobblers, and there's an argument that says that the only people who don't like it are bands that have not been inducted. Well, if you're telling me that some of those names should be there, yet the likes of Iron Maiden and Thin Lizzy shouldn't, again, you're talking at it wrong hole.
Right, fair enough. There we go. The guys have had their say. Obviously, viewers and listeners, again, please comment below. Let us know. Is James right? In our opinion, definitely so. Right, James, go and have a lie down for a couple of minutes. We're going to let Dave have his say now. So, yeah, I'd imagine that Dave's got an equally as impressive point to make. So, over to you, Dave. Fire away.
Cheers, Pete. Mine's titled "We Want Real Bands." Should be fairly self-explanatory. That it's what my big bugbear is the proliferation of these sort of projects or collaborations. It's this artist and that artist because we'll make an album with it, or we'll call it something. And there are a number of them, as I alluded to earlier, where it starts off as one thing, then 6 albums in, it's completely different people, completely different songwriters. James knows exactly who I'm alluding to. I won't say it on air because it's not fair, but it's bad enough that AI is coming along and taking airspace away from real bands. But these things are just as bad. It's just a cynical corporate move to try and make a few bucks. A band struggles, they sweat, they fight, they work hard to create an album. These things, it's back to the days of Tin Pan Alley. Let's get in some stock songwriters. Then we'll get a number of people in to play this bit or sing that. And that's bad enough when it gives the semblance of a band. So what you've got is you've got a singer, you've got 2 guitarists, you've got a bass player. There are a number of them now, and again, you probably know what I'm alluding to. This guy played on this, and you've got a list of credits that's 150 people. Even go see a bloody orchestra, you're not going to go see 150 people. They've got no chance of these things ever having any longevity, ever getting up on stage, ever building an audience that way. All it's doing is it's just taking money out of people's pockets that could actually go to bands that have got something to say. And there are a few exceptions, and as I said, it's not a new thing. These types of projects have been around for as long as I can remember. I certainly remember back in the 80s when Contraband, if you remember, Contraband came along, Michael Schenker and was it Richard Black from Shark Island? And it was dreadful. Absolutely dreadful, the album was. And I think that set the bar that's been lowered ever since. And if it's not a real band, if it's somebody that's coming along and saying, okay, I'll cherry pick these songs, I'll cherry pick these players, all they're doing is playing sessions. They're not putting their heart and soul into it. They've got no more investment than what they're going to get out of it after they've played their hour in the studio. And each time it stopped, it needs to be replaced by people actively getting out there and doing an A&R job again, scouting talented bands. Be it, and it's not just, we cover rock and metal, it's not just that, it's pop stuff, it's whatever. It shouldn't be something where it's a collaboration with this. And I mean, the pop world's rife with it. I rarely see a record these days where it's some stupid name featuring some other stupid name. So it's all collaborations. But where's the longevity in it? It's just a for now experience. Let's make as much money as we can before they realise what crap it is. Put your money into bands. Develop bands. Get bands out there playing and recording again. enough of this crap.
You can't argue, can you, folks? I mean, again, the guys have absolutely nailed it. And yes, Dave, that one's also going swirling down the crapper. I think it's a very valid point. We are at the risk of ruining proper bands, ruining proper music with all these collaborations. The 150 credits, yeah. I think I know which one you're referring to as well. So, yeah.
Bloody production line stuff.
Well, it's basically like just a newer version of like Stock Aitken and Waterman, isn't it? It's just like just wheel in somebody.
Yeah.
There's the songs. You sing them. Wheel it out. Next. It's that kind of thing, just with a melodic rock or hard rock bent or whatever. I don't mind a project being put together if they're going to be writing it. I don't have any interest in a project being put together to perform a bunch of in-house written songs. I don't see the point of that at all. Like you say, if you're going to say exceptions, Black Swan, yeah, they're a band.
Black Swan was good,
technically, because it's 4 guys who are writing their own material, but they're not out touring. But they had worked together to make their own album. Those songs weren't pre-written for them, and as a result, it was really good. And then you get other projects where it's like, well, it's this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. They all recorded remotely, and none of them wrote it. It was all written by this guy. It's just disposable then. It's got no merit, no worth. So I think if you're going to try and manufacture some sort of supergroup, like a contraband idea, which is what Black Swan is. It's like, we'll take this guy and this guy and this guy and put them together, but they actually work together to make a record. That's what you have to do. Then it's almost like being a touring band. At least they are working together. When they're all sat in their home studios and they've never met and they're not writing, then it's a waste of time.
Again, can we argue? No, we can't. Absolutely spot on. So, yeah, they're going down the rock and metal crapper. So, yeah, well done, guys. I almost dread now to bring this next segment up because it has been the subject of much controversy, as I've been told that my lyric choices are too obscure for the guys. So I've hunted down the hits, and let's see if the more popular tunes will result in some more recognition from the dynamic duo. No, probably I'm not expecting miracles neither. So as you can probably guess, it's the lyrics game. So Dave, who is our metal expert, you're up first. Here we go. We fought him hard. We fought him well. Out on the plains.
Run to the hills.
Oh, on which album, Smart Pants?
Number of the Beast.
Oh, he is good, isn't he? 1982. Right then, the second.
I only listened to it the other night.
The second one. One life, I'm gonna live it up. I'm taking flight, and I'll never get enough.
No, that one escapes me, Pete. Sorry.
Oh, I it was going so well until then. Judas Priest. You've got another thing coming.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay, I'm near it now.
I know. I've got it written down.
That was frustrating that because Priest popped into my head and I couldn't think of a song with those lyrics. And as soon as you said that, I was like, there we go.
Yeah. It's just he's out of tune. That's what it is.
It is very hard sometimes not to actually sing them, but to try and talk them. Which album did that come from, Dave?
Nothing Coming. Screaming for Vengeance.
That's correct. He is good, isn't he? 1982 as well. Right then, Dave, your bonus question. Did Screaming for Vengeance crack the UK top 10?
Yes.
No, it did not. It reached number 11.
Oh, right, okay.
So
should have done.
Yes, yeah.
Cracking return to form, Screaming for Vengeance.
Yeah, I can't argue that one. Okay, our rock expert, James, you are stepping up to the podium, and here is your starter. Now, if you don't get this, I am going to cry. If there's a God or any kind of justice under the sky, if there's a point, if there's a reason to live or die.
As amusing as it would be to see you cry, that's Innuendo by Queen.
It is indeed. And from the album
Innuendo.
Yeah, indeed. And that came out in 1991. Well done.
Excellent. I didn't. It came out the other week. It's very recent.
Sometimes I sleep. Sometimes it's not for days. The people I meet always go their separate ways.
Yes, I know this one. Bon Jovi, Wanted Dead or Alive.
From which album?
Slippery and Wet.
Indeed. Well done. Well done, guys. Excellent. Right.
I love this lyric again. This is miles better.
Check our bonus question. Slippery When Wet was obviously a big hit for Bon Jovi, but did it crack the UK top 5?
Yes.
No.
Well, it should have done.
Well, yes, as we Judas Priest. Yeah. No, it actually got to number 6.
Yeah.
I saw Bon Jovi on Slippery When Wet tour in Manchester.
Oh.
Now, I can't remember. I think it was FM that was supporting. There was a period in the 80s where FM were the perennial support band, and then that changed to Dare. I think it was FM that supported them in Manchester. Just as Slippery When Wet had really broke because it was Manchester Apollo.
Do you remember the gig? Was it any good?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Excellent. And then the time we wanted to expand, he suddenly goes into the man of very few words. Excellent. Right then. Okay. Well done, guys. Yes, you did much better on that time than any of the others. So I'll pick the big hits from now. Right. Quiz question. As you may or may not recall, I set these guys a question at the beginning of this podcast, and I asked the Gruesome Twosome the following question: which album has spent the most time in the UK charts? Slippery When Wet from Bon Jovi, Hysteria by Def Leppard, So Far So Good, Mr. Adams, The Works by a little-known group called Queen, and Bat Out of Hell 2 by my favourite food, Meatloaf. So let's see what the chaps have got. Dave, give me your answer first, please.
Ooh, that was, had you said Bat Out of Hell, that would have been a no-brainer. But that was a tough one because I remember, Slippery When Wet, Hysteria were kind of contemporary. Slippery When Wet came out first, and that's when the whole MTV explosion kicked off globally. I'm going to go Hysteria.
Okay, so Dave says Hysteria from Def Leppard. James?
Although I was tempted by Queen, I must admit.
This is a really difficult one because every one of those albums, it was a big seller. We've just covered Slippery and Wet. Hysteria sold millions. The Works, that did well. So Far So Good is a best of as well. It's not a studio album. It's a greatest hits. And then you had Battle of Hell 2. I'm going to say Battle of Hell 2.
Okay, so James goes Battle of Hell 2.
Simply because I think Slippery and Wet and Hysteria sold more units abroad than they did here. That's my guess.
So again, these answers have come from officialcharts.com. So here we go. So James's choice we'll do first. Bat Out of Hell 2. As I said, Meatloaf. Great album. Spawned some superb songs. That spent 68 weeks in the UK charts. So Far So Good, Bryan Adams. As you rightly said, it's a best of. But I did say which album. I didn't say what kind of album. That spent 93 weeks in the UK charts. Dave's choice, Hysteria, Def Leppard. Spent an amazing 108 weeks in the UK charts. The Works from Queen. I'm surprised James didn't go with this one just because obviously he's a big Queen fan. But he did right in some respects because that only spent 94 weeks in the UK charts. So he still would have won him it anyway. Because with 141 weeks in the UK charts, Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi spent the most time. And the weird thing is, guys, you both mentioned it as well. And then you ruled it out.
So therefore, the fact that they didn't crack the top 5, they won't give them monkeys because they'll have outsold everybody else in there.
No, you're absolutely right. And you did actually mention something quite important as well. Funny enough, Bat Out of Hell 2 and Slippery and Wet were more popular abroad than they were here, even though Slippery and Wet was the biggest one in the UK charts. It actually spent a whole load more time on the UK Billboard, the USA Billboard charts. So, yeah, well done, guys. Didn't get the answer, but I'll tell you one thing, there's some impressive working out there. Obviously not that impressive because you still got it wrong, but hey, but well done anyway. And with the quiz question now, finally in the rearview mirror, it comes to the end of the show. Just a final reminder that issue 112 is now out to buy. You can get it as a printed copy or a digital download from our website, fireworks-magazine.com, or you can wander into your latest TG Jones, which is a new high street name for WH Smiths, and hopefully you'll find it on the racks there, although we have been told by a few readers that they're finding it hard to get hold of in TG Jones. So again, if you can't, please come to the website. We have still got a few copies left. So, we always say buy it directly from us anyway, because you are guaranteed a copy if you do. But yeah, so you can try and get it on the high street, but just be aware that some apparently TG Jones aren't stocking it at the moment. And also, don't forget our playlist. Over 6 hours of quality rock and metal music to tantalise your eardrums. And to be fair, it does go rather well, like a fine wine with issue 112. So you can sit and listen to us. You just can't get enough of us, I'm telling you. So all that's left is for me to say goodbye, and goodbye to you all. And goodbye to my two friends as well for joining us. So thank you for joining us, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for hosting again, Pete. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you again next time.
And thank you, well, James, for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Happy to do it and see you again.
So until next time, and we do have a plan to get these podcasts out more regularly, we promise, because we don't want to go through that musical punishment again. Take care all, enjoy the music out there, and we will see you soon.
All views heard in this podcast are from the individual and do not necessarily represent those of Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine.